So it is time, so let us begin. The Start Today Company Limited first quarter consolidated business results announcement. So let us introduce the attendants. CFO Koji Yanagisawa, and Management Director Go Saito. So these are the two participants today. We are scheduled to end at 6 o'clock. So, Mr. Yanagisawa, please take the stage. Good afternoon. Sorry, I am dressed very casually today, but as I have mentioned this before, but this year is our 10-year anniversary, so this is the anniversary t-shirt that we created. So we've actually worn this today for this occasion. So if we can get into the briefing. Fiscal year 2014 first quarter consolidated business results. If we can cover the highlights first. In terms of the transaction value, was 27.2 billion yen, up 12% year-on-year. Operating profit was 2.8 billion yen, which was 0.3% increase year-on-year. In terms of the total transaction value, it has not met the initial targets that we had set initially internally. However, in terms of the operating profit, it has progressed as we have planned. And as you can see below, the EC mall business was 23.2 billion, which is 10.8% increase. E-commerce consulting was 3.9 billion yen, up 19.4% year-on-year. And in terms of number of shipments, it was 2.37 million, up 15.5% since year-on-year. Average shipment price was 9,791 yen, which is down 4% year-on-year. Number of buyers from July to June this year, July last year to June this year, was 3.4 million buyers, and it was 3.2 million same quarter last year. So we have made good progress here as well. In terms of profitability, the operating profit margin against the transaction value was 10.6%. It was 11.8% last year. So this gross profit margin, operating profit margin has come down. The positive factors influences this is that we have been able to control the promotional strategies. And this year as well, we want to limit the promotional cost to 2% of the transaction value. So we're keeping the same level of promotional costs. And also the sales mix has also contributed to increasing gross profit. So we've actually decreased the purchase stock business, so that's improving the gross profit. In negative factors, this is factors negatively affected profitability is the new logistics facilities we launched last fall. So this has increased the fixed costs. This is the biggest cause. So we launched this logistic facility last autumn. So the first and second quarter last year, we did not have to incur these fixed costs. That's why it's affecting the operating profit. In terms of the key topics for this quarter, some of this we've already covered. We finished the Wear scan function for Wear. This has had a positive effect, and this has removed the barrier to entry to Wear for many brands. So we have been able to welcome many brands to Wear. So I will get into more detail about Wear later. And we've also assigned non-celebrity general consumers as Wear list us, people with great followers on Where. So we've actually assigned some Where listas. This is also driving growth in more users and also helping Where grow as a stronger fashion SNS. So it's creating a great word-of-mouth buzz. Another issue about Where, topic about Where is the overseas activities. We've started in Taiwan, Korea already, and today we've just issued a press release that we're also beginning in Hong Kong starting today. So we hope to enter many more markets. And as of June this year, we actually had zozotown.com up and running as a test site, but we've officially closed that website. In terms of overseas markets, we want to concentrate on Where and to strengthen Where as a fashion media. So that's where our focus will be for the overseas markets. Also, the Labu Girls fashion site that we had launched last autumn, we've actually merged that with ZOZOTOWN as of July 2014. This is something that we've actually announced before. So as planned, we have merged it with ZOZOTOWN. And another topic, we've already issued a press release about this, but we're going to be issuing a MOOC for Where. This will be on sale August. This is as described in the press release, but we will be also getting more into the electronic magazine arena. And lastly, in terms of highlights, the total transaction value for this year is 132.4 billion yen, and operating profit will be 13.7. But we do not see the slow growth in the first quarter in the transaction value. It is not as a major issue considering the growth we plan to achieve throughout the year. So we believe that we are growing steadily. If we can get into the detailed numbers, we've covered many of the numbers here. That transaction value are illustrated here. In terms of the targets, we've actually achieved 20.6% in terms of progress against the initial targets. So net sales or operating profit is 21%, so it's not bad. In terms of the sales, it was 8.4 billion. It was negative 1.6 compared to previous year. Since last fiscal year, we've actually reduced the purchase stock business, intentionally reduced the volume of that business, so that this number is a reflection of the sales mix. So the decrease in purchase stock business it seems like it's going down, and that's why it's a negative 1.6% here. And we can look at the next page, increase and decrease analysis of operating profit. We started with a 2.87 million operating profit, but the transaction value has gone up. Therefore, the gross profit has increased by 840 million. But of course, this has also increased the SG&A costs, so this is a 500 million decrease. And in the new logistics center that we mentioned, this has incurred a cost of 250 million. And lastly, the variable expense margin has gone up due to the decrease in purchase per shipment. Therefore, we have a result of 2.88 million in operating profit. And consolidated balance sheet, there is not a big change here, so we will be skipping this page because there is no major changes here. In terms of transaction value, if you look at slide 7, this will give you a quarterly shift. So it's a 12% increase year on year. So if you can look at the chart, the purchase stock business I mentioned is only 2.7% of the total transaction value. So this is affecting the net sales, as I mentioned earlier. So mainly the consignment sales is the main business that we're focusing on. This is if you can go to slide 9, this will explain the shifts in net sales. So if you compare with the same quarter last year, the purchase stock business has decreased significantly. That is why it was a minus 1.6%. In terms of the operating profit and operating profit margin, it's on slide 10. So it was 10.6% is the operating profit margin. It was 2.88 billion in terms of the figures. So this has grown steadily. And in terms of SG&A, if you look at slide 11, this is against the transaction value. So it's, in terms of the big changes, is the 1.1% increase in terms of the fixed costs. In comparison to last year, it's a 1.8% increase overall. So the rent expense has gone up by 1.1%, and depreciation has gone up by 0.4%. So these are the two large changes. And in terms of shipping, the purchase amount per shipment has gone down. That therefore has resulted in an increase of 0.4% against the transaction value. And if you skip to slide 13, the SG&A for this quarter, it was 5.16 billion. The promotion costs, it was 1.2%. Promotion cost was 1.2% against the transaction value for this quarter. So overall, we want to keep it at level 2% throughout the year. So we believe that this is something that we can control and maintain. And in terms of number of total buyers, it's on slide 14. Number of total buyers for the year, or for this quarter, resulted in 3.4 million. So the guest buyers were 1.2 million, active buyers were 2.1 million. And so active members and business guest buyers are growing. Both of these groups are growing steadily. And number of shops on our mall business, we have 645 shops as of the end of first quarter. We actually have 2 more purchase stock shops, but so this is for the ZOZOVILLA business, for the high brand business. So it's not very large in terms of the transaction value, but we have 2 more shops that actually for the ZOZOVILLA business to help that grow. But for the in comparison to the overall transaction value, it's not very large. So as I mentioned before, the consignment sales will be the key business area we will be focusing on. Member distribution. Women, we have 59%. So this has increased by 1% for women. Geographical distribution, there hasn't been much change, and age distribution hasn't changed all that much either. Annual, if you look at slide 17, you will see annual purchase amount and pieces purchased per active member. Each member on average, are purchasing 43,405 yen. So this has come down a little bit since in comparison to the previous quarter. And the annual purchase pieces have gone down to 7.4, so 0.1 decrease. But this is a seasonal difference. And the first quarter is summer, the launch of spring-summer collection, so that's pushing these numbers down. So as a result, if you look at page 18, the average purchase amount and the average retail price in comparison to the previous year has gone down by 4% respectively. So the average purchase amount per shipment is 9,791 yen, and the average retail price is 5,444 yen. So we have more lower-end products available on our website, and this has driven these figures down. But if you, of course, these are areas where we want to drive a growth or increase, but it's in order to make it easier to purchase, it's better to offer lower-end products. So we believe that a certain level of decreases cannot be avoided, but we hope to actually make sure that it bottoms out, or we hope that it will bottom out this quarter or sometime this fiscal year. The number of shipments as illustrated on page or slide 19. So year on year is a 15.5%. So this has increased in comparison to the growth in transaction value. This is because the average purchase amount per shipment has gone down. So that means that the number of shipment has gone up. But in terms of the new logistical facility, we can still absorb the increase, so we have enough capacity to meet increasing shipments. And if you look at slide 20, this will give you the ratio of shipping volume to the total purchase volume by access terminals. So the purchases, there are more transactions taking place on smartphones. It's 54.6% right now. So this is a review. So if you look at page 22, we have not adjusted our initial targets in terms of the transaction value. It is satisfactory, but as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the growth for the whole entire year, we don't see a major problem. So that is why we do not intend to revise our targets. So let me skip to slide 28 to give you an update about what we are doing with Where. Currently, at this point, we have 3 million downloads, more than 3 million downloads, so it is a steady growth. And in addition, we also have pictures of coordinations of styling. We have, as the end of July, we have 1 million pictures. So we see that a lot of our users are very, very actively using Where. And as I mentioned earlier, we have launched Where in Taiwan, Korea, and Hong Kong. It says August here, but it's actually we launched today. So, and in the future, we plan to look at East Asia, mainly focus on East Asia, and look at possibilities in Europe and the US. So we're actually trying to see if that's feasible. In terms of the key functions of Where, it hasn't changed. We don't have the barcode scan function, but we still have the fashion SNS function, My Closet function, and coordinate recipe function. So those will remain the 3 key functions Where will offer. And on page 29, we've actually released this today, but we bought Yappa Corporation. It is now worthy. It is 100% subsidiary of starting today. Yappa is, I'm sure many of you may be familiar, but they have a mega store, which is the largest online magazine store in Japan. So we've actually decided to buy this company, and this is also indicated in the press release. So we've actually exchanged shares, and that's how, like we did with store.jp or Bracket, we will be announcing how this will affect our business and what we will be doing in the future. But today we wanted to just announce that Yappa Corporation has become 100% subsidiary of our Start Today company. And on slide 30, Stores.jp Pro is another topic we would like to discuss with you. So we launched in March 2014. So Source.jp is a site that allows any user to make their own online store very easily, but we want to actually make a pro version so that it can also be used for our brands, used by the brands to launch their own website. It will allow them to create their own online shop. And what differs between Stores.jp and Source.jp Pro is that with the Pro version, the fulfillment will be taken care of by ourselves, and it will be using the same services within our warehouse as a base. And currently, we have 3 sites up and running already. And this has actually received quite a good feedback, so we will see many more brands joining. So that will be all in terms of the overview of our performance for this quarter. So we would like to move on to Q&A. Please make sure that you are from the industry. Please, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. My name is Yoshida from Nomura Securities. How many questions could I ask? 3 questions? Okay, 3 questions, please. First question. Number of buyers hasn't hit the targets, I believe. To what magnitude was this? And also, was it 2% or 5%? Or can you let us know to what extent it didn't reach the targets? And in terms of the operating profit, how did you offset the OP so that you hit the targets in terms of operating profit? And maybe this is related to this question. In terms of the consignment sales, you mentioned the change in sales mix that's actually improved the gross profit, but what other activities are you doing? And last question, Mr. Maizawa the president hasn't joined us, but will he only be joining us twice a year or for each quarter? Why is he not joining us today? Oh, sorry, I was going to explain this earlier, and I forgot. Maybe he will get mad at me later. But today, the reason why our president Maizawa hasn't joined us today is because he's playing golf. I'm just joking. I'm sorry. I'm just joking, but the reason is that he's actually in charge of the wear business. He's actually driving that business right now. And as I mentioned, we're trying to emerge into overseas markets. And of course, because of his time, much of his time is taken up by Ware. And of course, we just launched Hong Kong today. So he apologized for not being able to join us today, but he wanted to focus on the Ware business. And of course, the second quarter and the fourth quarter, he will be joining us for these briefings. So in terms of the first quarter, he wanted to ask for everyone's forgiveness for not being able to join them because he's concentrating on Ware. And in terms of the other questions, in terms of the detailed figures, I will be explaining. I haven't actually. In terms of buyers, as you mentioned, we haven't been able to meet the targets. We haven't actually disclosed official targets, but it's only a few percent. But in terms of the first quarter, it only takes up about 20% of the total transaction value throughout the year, so it's not going to affect all that much if we are only a few percent short in terms of the number of buyers. And in terms of the promotional costs, we've set it at 2% of the transaction value. And we haven't really decided in which quarter we would use how much budget. But as you've seen in our figures, we've only used 1.3% or 1.2% this fiscal year or this quarter. So that is why, because we have actually controlled the promotional fees, that's why we have been able to meet our operating profit targets. And also the brand mix in terms of sales mix, some brands have sold better, some brands have not sold as much, but we haven't actually done anything ourselves to actually change the sales mix. Any questions? My name is Yamate from Credit Suisse. I have 3 questions. First question about Ware. You said that you have 3 million downloads now. Does it include every region or just Japan? And you've launched Hong Kong today. What is your initial targets for downloads, or you may have disclosed targets for downloads or number of users, but do you have any targets for overseas? And secondly, Yappa, the e-magazines, it mainly does e-magazine, but so where will be the synergy between Yappa and Zozo? And the third question, maybe this is a little bit too detailed, but in terms of the SG&A, the shipping costs, it was 3.7% against the transaction value this year, and it was only 3.3% last year. So, of course, you mentioned that the average amount per shipment has gone down by 4%. To what extent does this affect the shipping? I'm sure the reason why shipping has gone up isn't solely due to the decrease in purchase amount per shipment. So could you explain what other factors are affecting the shipping costs? Thank you very much for your question. The first question, Ware downloads. This 3 million includes all regions. In terms of the targets, we don't have any definite targets for overseas, so we're only looking at the initial targets that we announced previously. In terms of YAPA, we can't really go into detail yet, so we apologize. However, as we mentioned the topics, we are going to be issuing the MOOC for where, so I think if you can just gather from these topics where the signature will be, that will be great. In terms of the third question, and the shipping costs, what other factors are driving the increase in shipping? We can't really give you the breakdown of the shipping costs, but in addition to the purchase amount per shipment, it's also used. We actually buy the items from our users, and we pay for the shipping costs. And also, we've actually started doing the same-day delivery. So this is an additional cost. So these are the two types of costs in addition that we're incurring. These are services we didn't offer last year. So these are the two factors also affecting the shipping costs. Next question. Anyone have any questions? The first row, please. My name is Kazahaya from Deutsche Securities. I have 3 questions. Labu, you merged it with ZOZOTOWN. So what kind of findings did Labu offer? And how will that affect your future activities? In terms of the second question, this has to do with the transaction value. When I looked at the immediate results, Saito-san has done a great job sharing these figures with us. It is written here that it's not optimistic, the fashion industry. And so what kind of trends or what kind of opinions do you have about the fashion industry? You said it's not an optimistic outlook. The third, ZOZO used. How is this business doing? You said that it's growing steadily, but you want to do 4 billion, but how is that coming along? Could you explain this more in detail? In terms of Labu, as a result, when we first decided to do Labu, or the reason behind doing Labu it was a test for us, a pilot, and we wanted to see how if we took one category out and promote it, what will happen. But as we operated Labu, we had the same brands in Labu as we had in ZOZOTOWN. And we also, at the same time we were doing Labu, we did the similar promotions and focus on these brands in the same way, and we saw the same results both in Labu and ZOZOTOWN. So we found that if we actually focus on specific brands in ZOZO and promote it within ZOZO, it will sell well even within the ZOZO platform. So that's why we actually decided to merge those two together. And in terms of ZOZO used, we've actually launched a TV campaign in June, and this has also helped improve the quantities and also the quality of products that we have been able to purchase. And we're actually uploading them one by one to the ZOZO Use site. And so in terms of the first quarter, we've seen actually the level of results that we predicted, but we probably will see better results in the second quarter because we have been able to acquire better quality, better quantity of products. And in terms of the second question, in terms of our outlook on the retail industry, fashion industry, we look at the figures and we see that after mid-May, we've seen that maybe we wanted to do one more item or one additional item, or we don't really see any trend in terms of people not buying a specific brand or buying more of this type of brand. So we don't really have detailed reasoning, but we just look at the numbers and we see that it's not as optimistic. But this is, for our business, is up to the brand. So in terms of the macro effects, we probably won't see any. And even if people start to buy lower price end products, we offer that kind of products as well. So we won't probably see any results or effects in that respect. But as more data that we gather, we'll probably be able to offer more outlook in terms of the fashion industry. SMBC Nikko Shoken Kanamori, I have 3 questions as well. EC consulting business or B2B? I think that you plan that it will be slowing down this fiscal year, but last year we saw 30-some% growth, and now we only see a little less than 20%. So can you explain why the growth has slowed down significantly? And also SG&A, I would like to know more about the payroll. The last fiscal year, it was the fourth quarter last year was 1.7 billion, but this quarter it went down to 1.4 billion. So can you explain why this has gone up and then down? And then the third question, and website renewal. Is there something that you can share with us, new information about your website renewal? First question is the consulting business. As we've explained, we will not be taking on new clients in this regard. We will be focusing on our existing clients. And of course, if we don't have new clients, we won't be able to grow at the same pace. So the results here is just growth in terms of the existing clients. So this is as we have actually forecasted. So we're not very surprised by the results. In terms of the website renewal, we can't really share at this moment. We're actually making preparations, thinking about what would be best in terms of the renewal, so we don't have any information to share with you. In terms of payroll, fulfillment also includes the part-time staff that are working in the fulfillment side. And the reason why it was high in the fourth quarter is because there's a lot of movement in the fourth quarter. There's a lot of sales take place in fourth quarter. And in terms of the B2B side, in June, Duas has left our services, but what has increased, we've actually seen 3 more sites that joined Source.jp Pro. So 1 has decreased, but we've added 3. So this is something we knew before we actually issued the initial target, so it's already reflected in the figures. I would like to confirm about payroll. If you look at the past figures, there wasn't that big of a difference, but Is this time, is there a big difference because you were able to become more streamlined some certain areas, or why is there a big difference this year and last fourth quarter and first quarter this year? So could you repeat the question? You mentioned that fourth quarter is a peak period in terms of sales, but if we look at the past figures and compare, there wasn't that much of a big change in the past year. So is there special factors that are in play here that results in a big change? There's no special factors. It's, of course, there's a balance. Of course, it also depends on when we receive the products or when we ship out products. So maybe that's also affecting the change in numbers. This is Harukawa from Goldman Sachs. I have two questions. First, about where. So you've entered the overseas markets. Has overseas users overseas can they access the photographs and want to? Are they buying more on ZOZOTOWN? From overseas users looking at where are they accessing ZOZOTOWN and trying to buying more, making more purchases on ZOZO, or has this not affected the sales so much? And also the opportunity costs that you've repeatedly mentioned in the past due to lack of inventory. Has this have you been able to improve in this area? With respect to where, we stopped the ZOZOTOWN.com services. So if overseas users they can't make a purchase on ZOZOTOWN at the moment, so there's no transactions in that way. And Japanese users in Japan. In terms of Taiwan, we had Taiwanese brands on the platform. Only Taiwan. In the Taiwan Wear service, Taiwan users in Taiwan cannot make a purchase via Wear either. So they cannot make a service purchase, whether it's on ZOZOTOWN or on any EC site. Of course, we're trying to improve in terms of lack of inventory. Of course, there are areas that we've made improvements, and there are other areas we can do better. So we can't mention at this time, but we're actually are making preparations to be able to improve the lack of inventory. So when this is confirmed, then I will be able to share that with you at a later time. Will you be, in terms of where, will you be making it possible for users to make purchases via where? It might not be immediately, but in the future. Trying to sell Japanese brands overseas may be difficult, but to be able to make Taiwanese users buy from the Taiwanese brands, that is something that we can work on. Any other questions? So the Q&A session will end. Thank you very much for joining us for the announcement of consolidated business results for the fiscal year 2014 first quarter. Please complete the survey on your desk. Thank you very much for joining us.